have on the back.
What's going on, beautiful people? I am the Grandmaster, and I also go by D-Ray, bringing you guys the next episode of the Grandmaster's Table, and I'm joined by my beautiful co-host, Summer.
Hi.
Guys, it's going to be an awesome episode because we're hitting 26, moving forward past the big 25th episode celebration that we had last week. If you guys missed that, I'll leave a link down in the description below. It's going to count down the top 10 moments that we've had thus far, and moving forward, it's going to get much, much better because today we have a draft league just phenom. This guy knows this stuff when it comes to battling with the Pokémons. Please welcome Platinum Howler.
Hello. You're really hyping me up, like guaranteeing that I'm gonna be able to top the top moments from the previous 25 episodes. Like, wow, high expectations right out of the gate.
Guys, if you guys are excited for this episode, do us a massive favor. Make sure you smash that thumbs up button. And if you're new, por favor, hit the wow. What, am I just blanking?
Yeah,
you know what had just happened is that I just thought about how when you say I breathe so heavy, and I messed up my whole script. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, turn on post notifications, hit the bell button so you guys get notified every single time we post a new video. See? That's just what happened. You got in my head.
Sorry. Well,
oh my goodness.
I feel like I gotta breathe for you.
I know. It's a mouthful. It's automatic at this point, but apparently not till this time. But anyways, woo, guys, this number 26, number 25 just happened. Like I said, Howler's going to be a phenomenal addition to the cast that we've had. How are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing really good. I've been looking forward to recording this all day. I also want to say I think it's super cool that I am your first guest post 25th episode countdown special. I feel honored to be kicking off like the next era of the Grandmaster's Table today.
Thanks,
awesome.
We appreciate
We're really
it. It was
excited to have you.
Yeah, we are because you have been a big fan of this podcast, and you've been a big supporter, and we really do appreciate it. I know that we talked about having you on quite some time ago, and the lineup that I had coming forward was just like one after the other. So once everybody kind of cleared and the smoke was let out, I'm glad that we finally got you on here. You have proven yourself, my man, to be a phenomenal draft league player. How long have you been playing in the format, and how long have you been on YouTube doing it?
So I started on YouTube about January of last year, so January 2019. I've been watching draft for a lot longer than I've been playing it. Like, I remember starting to watch GBA battles back in, I want to say, season 4. So that was probably, gosh, I don't even know what year that was. Maybe 2016, 17, I don't even know. Yeah, I didn't really start playing consistently until like basically when USUM came out. Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon is when I started playing in draft leagues regularly. I did a couple in, well, mainly just really, I tried one in Sun and Moon, and those leagues kind of like died after like 3 weeks, which was unfortunate. But yeah.
Well, that's surprising to me because I figured you'd be a vet from the way that you play. You had a phenomenal season in the AP Academy. Tell us more about that. You tell us about your record, the experience, the whole shebang.
Yeah, I don't have a clue how I did so well in that. If you saw my team, originally, like when I drafted the team, when I got to pick 10 in the draft, I was like, I somehow managed to draft no ground resist. I better grab the only thing that I can see that's left, and that's Togetic. And Togetic is just terrible. So I ended up getting rid of that thing. Because I was like, I'm never going to bring this Pokemon to a game. So then once I made my transactions, I actually had no ground immunity or resist at all. So it's a wonder how I made it as far as I did with that team. It was very threatening offensive, but very frail on like defensively speaking. It was like I had very few switch-ins to anything, but somehow I managed to do. I draft a lot of different types of teams, and even if like some teams are easier for me to build with than others. Somehow I still find a way to make all types of different teams do all right for me.
That's good.
And you did pretty good. You went undefeated during the regular season, am I right?
That is right.
Daniel, let me just tell you really quick. Daniel's face right now, he is so salty. He is you're salty. Yeah,
hold up. Pump the brakes for a second. I'm not salty. I'm just saying that, like, okay, so here, let's put some context up here, right? So the APA Academy, I'm one of the admins for that league. It's basically Panthers Baby. It's the prerequisite to getting into the APA main league, which is full of juggernauts of the draft league community. Just to name a few, Wolfglick plays in that league, A-Drive, Pokémon MD, things like people like that. And this basically is it's hard to say the minor league version of that compared to, but in reality, the AP Academy competition is next level, in my opinion, in regards to the whole draft league summit. And so we actually brought in Platinum Howler as someone that I actually did not know. I did not know who you were. Mid brought you in, and I was like, okay, cool. This is going to be a great opportunity for him. It's going to be nice and awesome. And then I did all of the incoming draft stuff. We did the coaching announcements. There was this big hype around it. I told Summer, I was like, this is going to be a league that I'm going to be just thromping over. And then week 1 shows up, and I get the nobody that I thought that was like, who's Platinum Howler? He's new. Okay, cool, whatever. And so we end up playing, and the man thromped me. I was like, what just happened? And you think it was a 3-0, right? That was a 3-0 win, and it wasn't horrible.
It was a 3-0, yeah.
And so I remember telling Mid, I was like, this guy's actually pretty good.
Mid knew who I was because we had battled twice before in the IBLD League, which was the first YouTube league that I did. I think it was also the first YouTube league that he did. And we also played in season 6 of IBL after we were both promoted from the D League to the main league. So we had played twice before. So I think he knew that I think he knew a little bit more what I was capable of than you did.
Definitely.
That first matchup, I have to say, I was talking about how ground weak that team is, or the team that I drafted is. Oh boy. And week 1, have to go up against Excadrill and GMAX Anaconda. I was so looking forward to that. But so naturally, my switch into either one of those is an air balloon Torkoal max special attack, because I just when you don't have ground resist, you just invent them out of thin air by packing air balloons on everything in sight.
Yeah, and it was a fun matchup for sure. It's Mid proceeded to let me know after, and he's like, "Hey, I told you." I was like, "You didn't tell me nothing. What are you talking about?" So congrats on you and your amazing season. 10-0 is an amazing accomplishment. We originally were going to have 12 weeks in the season. We condensed it down to 10. It was going to be 8, but the whole league decided to do 10, and you proceeded to just beat everybody. And your run was phenomenal, and it's going to be awesome to see you continuing to stack that on with the leagues that are coming up pretty soon. And then speaking of the IBL, you're actually champion of the league coming in, right? And you're in the running for another championship coming in pretty soon. How's the IBL, and how was that winning?
Well, I think that was after I won the last. It was the last Gen 7 season that was season 6. Currently, season 7 is going on. I never thought that I was capable of actually winning a draft league going at. I had in all my previous draft leagues that I had played, I had very little success in playoffs. Actually, the PCLD league was the league that I played in before IBL season 6, and in that league, I won my first ever up game against Mop of Justice. I don't know if you know who that is or not. But yeah, so I feel like, and also that IBL season 6 team, I don't want to say that because that's going to be the answer to one of the questions later. So I just want to say also about APA. Hold on.
Oh no, so we'll hold on to that. We'll hold on to that little answer to later.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Anyways, I also just wanted to say, like, kind of changing the subject a little bit. The 10-0 record in PA Academy was totally not planned, not something that was a goal that I set for myself at the start of the season. The top 6 coaches in that league were insane. Absolutely insane. Like, they were all out for blood. Like, if I was in a position at 9-0 in the last week where if I didn't win my last game, I could have potentially dropped from 1st to 5th. And I would have had to play. Gosh. I would have had to play like either Vepsis or Gray in the first round of playoffs in the quarterfinals. So, like, being 9-0 and still having that much pressure to win your last game, just so you don't have to play the best draft league players that's out there in the first round, like, that's insane. Like, the level of competition at the very top was ridiculous.
Exactly. That's kind of like what we talked about before, is that the EP Academy gives the opportunity to the raw draft league players that don't necessarily have the channel size that others do, and it basically shows them up to light, then gives them a platform to be able to perform. And that group, it was it was basically like what Howler's trying to say is that there were 20 teams, and the top 5 to 8 were so top heavy to the records of what Platinum Howler had, right? So he was at 10-0. The next best was 9-1, and the next best was 8-3. But the differential was so close together. Those games were like nail biters in between, so anyone could have won that game. And so there was just this big top heavy half of the league that typically when you have a draft league or any kind of competition, the ones that are sitting on top sit on top pretty. But in this league, if you sneeze, then you drop. By a lot. So there's a lot of competition in the EP Academy, and it was an amazing season. We're going to look forward to getting the next one pretty soon, hopefully around the second DLC time, so make sure you keep you guys eye out for that one. It's going to be a good time. But with YouTube stuff, you said that you started around the start of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. When you started your YouTube ventures, did you do it more so as a hobby?
Yeah. I was hesitant at first when I wanted to start doing YouTube, just because I didn't know if I was capable of making videos up to the standard that I had, like good enough, like videos that I would want to watch if I were watching other content creators' videos on YouTube. But it actually turned pretty good, because I have a good friend, TJ Poketech from the LET. He is just a tech wizard, and he found a way to like download files directly from Nintendo's servers, so he could record my battles on Citra and send them to me and send the footage to me that way. And the footage was super high quality.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's basically the same method that we used for making videos for all of the battles in the LET, which is one of the leagues that's a non-upload league that I was playing in before I started doing YouTube. And in 2019, I still played in the LET, and it's still ongoing. In fact, season 6 of that league just wrapped up, and season 7 is starting probably around the end of August. Applications are going out in about 2.5 weeks for season 7. So yeah, nice. I'm like forgetting what the original question is now. I'm like going on so many tangents, trying to make sure.
No, that's perfect.
That's perfect. Your mind is wandered. I love that. As if YouTube became was it a hobby for you when you began? And you're saying how like the quality that you thought you were going to bring weren't going to be to the same magnitude as you have from other content creators. Did you bring it with more of like let's make it more of an elaborate question that's easier to answer. Did you start YouTube with the intent for it to grow and make it something that maybe you can make an income off of later, or was it just something to, like, I'm playing Pokemon, might as well upload it kind of thing?
Yeah, it was never. I never intended to like blow up and become the next A Drive. That's for sure. That's not.
I don't know, man. With the 10-0 record, I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't want to say it's not sustainable because obviously A Drive is doing just fine. But it's definitely not something that I want to make a career of. I don't want to like 5 years from now. I don't want to be just doing just playing Pokemon as during all of my free time, like every waking moment playing Pokemon. Like that's I like Pokemon, but I don't like it that much, you know?
Yes.
So as far as my YouTube origins go, very few people know this, but I actually started doing post commentaries when I was still in high school. In grade, so that was 2016. Yeah, I started doing post commentary 2016, like learning how to use voice recording equipment and whatnot. But I was still very insecure about the whole video editing and whatnot, and I wasn't sure if I could put it all together and put it onto my channel. So I was a part when I first started playing competitively, like organized competitive play. It was basically when ORAS came out, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. And I found this community through WordPress, believe it or not.
Wow.
They had a WordPress blog, and I found it because I was starting up my own blog to write about sports. Cool. And the main thing that I wrote about was talking about my reasons for why certain NFL games are going to turn out the way they did. So I was in a program in school called the Sky program, and so one thing that I got to do for English marks was create a sports blog and write sports articles. So I was looking so I created it through WordPress and looked for other blogs that I could follow. And one of them that I found was for the Ion Game Corner. So I decided that I would join their community. I just started playing fairly casually competitive mons. That was the first organized play I had. I had started dabbling in competitive mons in X and Y, but I never joined a real community like the Ion Game Corner. Yeah. So in grade 12, that was in grade 11 when I found them, and then in grade 12, as part of my independent study course, which was through the same program, I started trying to learn how to make my own videos and post commentaries for my battles and stuff, because I was a huge fan of Draft League battles, that like the GBA battles I was obsessed with the GBA, and that was like my dream at that stage. As I, hopefully if I continue to do this well enough, then maybe one day I can be in the GBA. But GBA has kind of died off a little bit now. There are other leagues that have sort of replaced it, but so I started doing post commentaries for the games, but then I would send the audio files to the owner of the Ion YouTube channel to attach them to my battles, and then they would just go up on his channel on the Ion YouTube channel, not my own channel. So yeah, it's funny because when my second battle in the IBLD league against Dr. Slacking,
that's a name for you.
Yeah, he said afterwards that he was quite impressed with my post commentary, given how new I was to the YouTube scene. Well, I'd actually been doing post commentaries. I actually had experience doing them from years ago. So that's kind of.
It's a serious talent. It's funny that you say that you found it through sports whenever you're looking through that and it kind of correlated it with itself. It's kind of like sports broadcasting in a way. It's tough to be able to digest what you see and then turn it into words that'll be entertaining for someone to listen to or make sense, because there's a lot of different people that watch this kind of stuff, right? There's the audience that wants to learn something. There's the audience that wants to be entertained, and there's the audience that wants to basically understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And so if you can digest what's happening and then make sure whatever comes out of your mouth be something that makes sense, it's an actual talent. And it's easy to compare it to sports broadcasting. I got this, it's funny you say blog, because before I started YouTube, I started reading a bunch of different articles about YouTube and content creation, what things I need, what apparatuses would work the best. And I read this long blog from Joe Buck. And Joe Buck is a real famous sports broadcaster, mainly in the Major League Baseball, and he's in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And he wrote this article about basically understanding what you're watching and then being able to depict the story depending on how you visualize it and make it an educated way for people to understand and be entertained. And I was like, oh, that should make sense. And that can relate to Pokemon, because in a way it is an esport, right? And so not everybody could do that. And the fact that you could do that right from the get-go is actually pretty cool. That's something to be proud of. And to play Dr. Slacking, even though there was the IBL, the minor league from that, that's pretty impressive, because Dr. Slacking has come to be one of the most fierce competitors in the draft league scene at the moment. And yes, the GBA. I had the same dream. It's the GBA is gone in hibernation for the moment. TTM Jolt, if you're listening to the podcast, revive that thing. And our inboxes are wide open, my friend.
Yeah,
just let us know.
The one common factor I hear by a lot of people is like starting out their YouTube career or like being fans of, draft league is the GBA. That's like one of the major GBA common factors is the GBA.
And the NPA. The GB and the NPA were the big ones back when I first started watching. The NPA was a league that was commissioned by Jodor, and then the GBA obviously with Jolt and his crew. But basically, like how Howler said, is that there's now been many leagues that have replaced it, that have come to that caliber, like the WBE. We even say like the NCP has done a good job doing that, and even now the BBR with what Mid's doing. Yeah. It's going to be pretty great. Now, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's find out a little bit more about you. I know that both of us had a little bit easier time scheduling today because you're in Pacific Standard Time. Where is it that you reside?
I'm Canadian. The town that I live in is called Richmond. It's like it's about it's probably like a 15-20 minute drive away from Vancouver. Like the heart of Vancouver. But whenever somebody from like San Diego asks me where I'm from, I just tell them I'm from Vancouver, right?
Oh, because
which is pretty close anyway.
Yeah.
So do you get that cold weather most of the year?
We don't usually get a ton of snow, but like the Vancouver /BC climate is pretty mild for the most part. Like you won't see it go below like -10. I guess is a good example to use. Like when I was in Montreal, I did a semester at McGill University in Montreal in the winter of 2016, and I remember when I had to go like back home and looking at the temperature, it was like -20 degrees Celsius.
Oh my god!
I don't know what that translates to.
Mind you that you use the metric system like the rest of the world.
really cold.
We're using Fahrenheit.
Really cold.
I couldn't imagine. I love the San Diego weather. Like today it was like 92 degrees, and I couldn't understand.
Think of it this way: freezing for us is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. For them, it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit.
32? What the hell? It's 64 is freezing.
Freezing? No. I'm talking about. I'm talking about scientific freezing point is 32
when we feel cold outside. Mind you that you probably walk outside and then you look and your car is probably covered in snow. There's ice on the sidewalk, and it's a cold typical day for you right over in Vancouver. For us, if it gets lower than 65 degrees, I can't feel my hands, my car won't turn on.
65 degrees in Fahrenheit is like hot. Like it's definitely
where your side is.
Yeah, in Celsius. It's so I always try to figure out like what's the word I'm thinking of, like the
heck? The conversion?
Yes, the conversion. And all I know is that 0 degrees Celsius is freezing, where 32 degrees Fahrenheit is also freezing.
Oh, dang. So then
So if for him
Howler,
it's negative
cold,
21 degrees Celsius, that's a freezing cold. That's beyond freezing.
And you're like walking around your city like, tra-la-la-la-la. Like, this is normal. That's crazy. Do you like the cold weather?
Like,
or you
weather
just...
that's more like the temperature that Matt O'Shea would have to put up with in his we don't really have to put up with that. It doesn't really snow a ton in Vancouver. It does a little. It will probably get like maybe a week or two of snow on the ground for all that time. But in Vancouver, it rains a lot. There's in the fall and winter, it's basically all rain and not as much snow.
That would make sense because you're more towards like on the west coast. Northern side is more of the Seattle, Washington kind of thing with us, and it's always raining over there. So you're typically around. You're like around that area, which makes a lot more sense. Yeah. So you barely get to see the sun. I don't know how you deal with that, man. That's crazy. Have you always lived in the same area your entire life?
Yeah. I've lived in the same area. You haven't really moved around a lot. I've lived in Richmond for my entire life. That much I can say. Well, unless you count that I was away at McGill when I lived in Montreal. But yeah, like my family has always been situated in Richmond. As far as the conversion goes, Summer, usually you if you're converting Celsius to Fahrenheit, it's double it and add 30. So let's say it was 20 degrees Celsius today. You double that, it goes to 40, and you add 30, it's about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. 20 degrees Celsius is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. There you go.
Oh, got it. Now I'm going to be a wizard at this.
That's not an
it's not exact,
science,
Oh, close enough for me though. I'll take it.
You're very mature for your age, and I know that you said that. Okay, so I'm not gonna have you say your age on the podcast for the internet to know, but you said that you came in. I'm kind of connecting the dots here, right? So you said that you came into YouTube and started doing your post commentary around January of last year, right? And that's when you said that you were freshly coming in to your 11th and 12th grade in high school in 2016.
Yes.
So you're more on the younger side. Kudos to you that your maturity level is great and highly up there, because I'm starting to try to figure out and connect the dots here about our age gap. When did you first?
Was old as
Okay, let's not go down that. How long have you been a fan of Pokemon? When was the first time you dipped into the actual franchise itself?
My first Pokemon game was Pokemon Fire Red on the Game Boy Advance. My first memories of seeing like friends or people or other people play Pokemon, there's two kind of moments that stick out. One is my mom has a close friend from like when she was younger. Her name's Wendy. She has a son named Rory who is the same age as me, and I remember him having the game when we went over to just socialize one time. I just remember him. I just remember seeing him play Pokemon before like I started playing Pokemon at the same time. And also when I was really young and in elementary school, there some of the older kids would bring their Game Boy into the after school care, and there would be like 3 or 4 kids like peering over his shoulder to watch play the game, and I was one of those kids a lot of the time, and I thought it was pretty cool. So when I got a Game Boy, I eventually got Pokemon Fire Red, and I got Pokemon Emerald, and then over time I got the entire Game Boy Advance collection. I still have Fire Red, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald.
Wow.
So you came more of like the Generation 3, like the tail end of Generation 3, around that time area. Yeah.
A lot of people who you've had on some of the older people that you might have had on the podcast, they're like Gen 1, so like they're still doing, like Matt, I know for example, his posts stuff on Twitter about solo runs that he does on like in Pokemon Red or Blue or whatever, and I cannot play those games. Like if I'm playing Kanto, if I'm playing through the Kanto region, I'm playing it on my
on your upgraded versions.
That's funny.
Oh, it's funny you say that because in my generation, in Marder, the whole game was all blue or the whole game was all red. So that's when we started.
The first Kanto came out in, what, 97, 98?
96 is when the card game was released, and then 98 is when the first release of Pokemon Green and Pokemon Red. And Green tanked and only left in Japan, and then Blue and Red was released at the very end of 1998, the Christmas area, which is when I picked up Pokemon
and
Yellow.
You were 7 years old.
And I was 7 years old back then.
I was like 7 months old.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Why I didn't ever play those games.
Oh no. That's awesome.
That's funny.
I was having a conversation with Vivid after we had our podcast the other day, and we're saying like, man, when you ask me that question, it's gonna really bring to light the kind of group of PokeTubers that we're in, because there's that one group. There's 3 solid groups, right? There's the ones that are kind of leaving high school right now, that are now in the draft league scene, that are pretty high up there. Like Mid's one of them. He's still in high school, and he's still playing with people that are in high caliber competition. And then there's the middle ground, which is kind of like where you're at, right? Which is the same as Jay and John Jr. and OG Albina, which is at the middle end of the beginning of their 20s. And then there's this big, massive gap and jump between myself and the group that kind of I'm brought in with is like in Vivid Color, Shady Penguin, A Drive, Joey Pokemon MD. All of us are like the older crowd. Panther, shout out to Panther. And it's cool to see you guys come in and with a level of maturity that I could never understand, because when I was your age, Howler, I was not doing this kind of stuff organized in a way. I was out partying and doing really stupid stuff with my friends. I was just being a hooligan.
Yes.
So kudos to you that you have your life together to where you can become a content creator and perform in front of large crowds of people. Know that you are of another caliber, of another breed. So kudos to you, because your content is really, really great. As much as you say that you probably don't know how to perform in that sense, and you don't have something that you think that is good to your standard, your stuff is amazing. I love your content. Now,
you were talking about earlier, like when you're comparing it to sports broadcasting, and you know how there are different audiences that prefer to see different types of content, like entertaining or like when you explain yourself super thoroughly and whatnot. Like, I've definitely kind of settled into trying to make my live commentaries of Wi-Fi battles more on the entertainment side. I mean, we didn't really have a choice in doing live comms or post comms for Wi-Fi, because they took away the ability to save battle replays, which is really frustrating. It just makes the game so much less accessible overall for anybody who doesn't have a capture card or can't afford one or whatever. But since I do have one, it works for me. But it doesn't work for everyone. So I like doing live comms for Wi-Fi games, but I also decided to join a showdown league for the first time this year. Prior to this year, I had never played in a showdown league, because I always wanted to I always preferred Wi-Fi over showdown, just because I thought it was more fun. You know, aesthetically, it's a lot better to look at and whatnot. But you know, since there were so many Pokemon that were cut from the Sword and Shield games, being able to play in a showdown league where you can use all of the cut Pokemon and you can use Mega Evolutions again, I wanted that opportunity to like play in a league with a wider pool of Pokemon to use. So that's the NCL that I'm talking about, the Nimbasa City League. I'm sure it'll be referenced later on in the Twitter questions, which I may have peeked at. So I do post comms for the showdown games, because I'll try to have that balance. So that, and I feel like there is a lot that you can talk about in post comms that will kind of go over your head in live comms. Like you won't notice it in the moment, but when you have time to sit back and reflect on the game, there's a lot of key points that you'll notice that you can bring up and explain why maybe this wasn't the best thing to do, or what you should have done differently, or whatever. So
definitely.
I'm really going to focus on making my Showdown content a lot more like
educational,
and educational, so that and educational in the sense that I can explain my thought process and plays in a way that someone who maybe isn't as experienced a player of me will understand. Like I can explain it in a way that D-Ray will understand, because he plays in all the same leagues as me. He's a very experienced player. But somebody like Summer, who doesn't play in draft leagues really at all, might be like, what the hell are you talking about, Howler? So I would try to explain
like
it
in
a
layman's
way
terms.
That someone like Summer, who doesn't play Pokemon but maybe wants to watch my videos for whatever reason, would explain it in a way that she can understand. So that's kind of my goal heading into this upcoming season of NCL.
That's cool, because that helps for people that are fans but can be nervous to actually start because they feel like they might not know enough. So that'll be awesome. I remember Daniel used to do post commentary back in the day before.
Yeah, I think that's because I was forced into that.
You were forced, but I think you're such an animated freaking. You're very animated when you play that. You're someone that needs a capture card.
Holy shit, dude!
Yeah,
I can't. So for me personally, I love to be able to explain what I'm doing, but I'm one of those. I relate to Kyle because Kyle A and I are becoming to be really close friends, because him and I are very one and the same. Although how you are able to explain your moves in a I think I told him this. You and Owen are very similar, very very similar in a way that the way you play, the way you explain. Yeah, Mr. Ojo Albina, his screen name Ojo Albina. You two are very similar in a way that you guys explain what you're doing and why you're doing it very thoroughly, and so the people like Summer can understand what they're doing versus me.
Which is definitely needed.
Me and Kyle
you're just yelling at the camera.
We'll just yell at the camera and have a full context of what I'm doing in my head, but I won't make that won't come out of my mouth. I'm just talking about how big my PP is, because I'm making this really out of the box play. So it's awesome that you have that kind of content. So if you guys are looking for that kind of stuff, again, as always, his link will be down in the description below for his content that is coming forward pretty soon. Make sure you guys don't want to miss out on that. I do want to ask you one thing before we completely let the subject move on to the next. Is when you said that you came into the Pokemon community in Fire Red, the upgraded version of my dearly beloved games. If you were to say you can get one Pokemon that is your absolute favorite of all time, and this doesn't have to be competitively, it doesn't have to be just purely off aesthetics. We're very antsy to get this one from you, but what's your favorite Pokemon of all time?
This is a really hard one. It's hard to pick just one and not split it up between what's my favorite Pokemon to use competitively, what's my just favorite Pokemon design. If I see, you've worded this question in the past, it's if you could choose one Pokemon that you could have in real life, what would that be? I don't know. I probably have to say either Squirtle or Piplup. I don't really have much of a rationale behind that, other than I just think I just like their designs. I think they're cute Pokemon to pick at the start of the. I'm pretty sure when I first played through. Actually, I think I've chosen Turtwig as my starter in Gen 4 more often than I've chosen Piplup. But I really like Piplup in the anime. Not that I don't really watch the anime hardly at all, but whenever I do, I think Piplup's really cute in the anime. And
it is
Squirtle
cute.
would have been what I played through. Squirtle would have been what I played through Fire Red with. For some reason, I remember when I started playing Fire Red, for the very first time. Originally, I chose Charmander, And then I got to the first gym and realized, oh, I can't beat this gym with Charmander. Charmander does not match up very well against Geodude or Onix. So I seem to remember restarting the game with Squirtle as my starters. Like, you know what? I don't like Charmander. I want to try out Squirtle.
You went the analytical way. You did the straightforward way. That makes sense.
Like, I didn't even know anything about Pokemon when I first started playing. Like, when I first started playing Pokemon, I thought that I remember thinking that like every move had every move either had a chance to do damage or not. Like, I remember like Caterpie's attacking me with String Shot. Like, is it going to do any damage to me? It's like, no, it just lowered my speed. Okay, good. Like breathing a sigh of relief when it didn't do any damage to me. Just
that's accurate.
But I didn't know what the moves did and whatnot. And it wasn't until after I had beaten Pokemon Platinum all the years later that I realized that there was a difference between physical and special attacks.
Yep. That was the first generation of the physical special split too.
Yeah, that was relatively new. Like as of Diamond and Pearl, there was that difference was distinguished, but I didn't figure it out until Platinum. So it took me two playthroughs of the games to figure that out. And then I also learned about it. I didn't know about natures or individual values until like Black and White 2. Like all of I was such a noob for the longest time.
That's a good thing though. It preserves your fan intake of just playing the game in a non-competitive mindset, because I'm sure that you can admit to this part that now moving forward, like let's just say that there's a Gen 9 and then we go back to Diamond and Pearl and such. Typically, like Summer will play the game and she'll play with no worries. She'll play and she'll catch a bunch of Pokemon, play through the game and it doesn't matter. Me, speaking for myself, I'll reset the game to make sure my starter is either adamant, jolly, or timid.
Yep.
And make sure that when I catch another Pokemon, it's got a competitive nature in that way, so that I'm not wasting time moving forward. If I can find the shiny that's gonna got that nature that I want, it's gotten so much to where I want to get my team to be so competitively advanced to give me an opportunity to be better in the game. Versus Summer's like, oh look this, I'm gonna get this Caterpie because it's there.
But you have been like that since you first started playing, because I don't think I've ever said this. You were because you're so competitive. That's how he's always been since he was a kid. Your parents bought you a book because you couldn't beat the game or something.
Mind you,
but you had to have this book, and you hate books. You don't read
the
books.
Guidebook.
And he read thoroughly the whole guidebook at 8 years old.
Yeah, so mind you, you did the logical thing.
Yes.
You did the thing that a smart person would do. This is the kind of different person that Howler and I are, right? So mind you, we're both playing the same exact game. All right, so for those who don't know, Fire Red is basically the remake of Pokemon Red, the version, which is the Game Boy version. Okay, that's the game that I played, which is the pixelated version.
The old-ass one.
And then Howler came in with the much prettier version, but nonetheless, it's still the same storyline. And so I too started with Charmander, right? So this is the differences between Howler and I as a player and as a person in general, because this speaks volumes of the people that we are. We both started with Charmander, right? We both get to Brock. Brock is the rock type gym leader, and both of his Pokemon are rock ground types. That was distinguished in both games, and Scratch and Ember do no damage whatsoever. So my side, right, D-Ray, I would write down on a piece of paper, okay, Charmander at level 11, his Scratch does 2 damage. Okay, and then I would go back into the Ilex Forest, and I get to level 16 and become Charmeleon. Now I do 11 damage. Okay, so that's the difference of 7 damage. I need to get X amount more levels, and to the point where Ember's doing the most. I got to level 22 before Charmeleon didn't even listen to me anymore to finally beat Brock, right? This is the persistence that I was doing, writing down how much damage I do. Howler was like, this isn't doing any damage. What if is Squirtle? Squirtle's a better option. Start the game over, bring back in Squirtle, and then just mollywops Brock. And so at that point, I was so angry at the game, I would throw the Game Boy across the room. My parents were like, here's the guide. So I read at that point that Squirtle and Bulbasaur are the optimal option. I said, no, I'm gonna continue doing the Charmander thing. So the stubborn version. So that's just speaking volumes of a player that I am versus what he is. He's the more analytical, smart version, which you should be doing, versus me that just grinds on until I force it.
Gets yourself mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before I forget, I think the other reason why I probably like Squirtle is because when I was really young, I played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team on my Game Boy. And
the spin-offs.
You take the personality test at the beginning of the game, and I got Squirtle as a starter. And in the newer versions of Mystery Dungeon, I know that you can take the test and then it tells you that this is what it recommends for you, but then you can kind of just like throw that option away and choose whatever starter that you want. But back in Mystery Dungeon, I don't think that, in Red Rescue Team, I don't think that was a thing. So yeah, that's probably why I like Squirtle, to be honest, is because it matched me and personality given
it was almost given to you depending on the traits that you got.
Yeah,
that's cool. I
like that.
Yeah.
I want to do that now.
Tip up Squirtle. He's a water type expert. He's a water type gym leader. I like that. That's cool. And the first question that we have here is by Olivia Claire, and this goes by @Olivia Sama. She is one of the previous guests that we just had not too long ago on the Grandmasters table. She has a 2-part question for you. First part says, what was your first thoughts when you saw my reaction to your question about your name?
Oh yeah, that was her response to that was so much. It was so much funnier than I thought it would be. Like the whole time listening to that, I was kind of just like my mouth was just like open, because you know how you are when you're like laughing. It was kind of just like listening. It was kind of just like listening like with a huge smile on your face the entire time, like you're smiling so hard that your cheeks start to hurt type of thing. I started to feel a little bad that I had maybe put her on the spot and made her start to scramble a little bit. But she actually told me afterwards in DMs that she didn't really feel uncomfortable like asking that question. Yeah.
That's good.
People call me Platt.
Tell us more about that. I think you're about to ask it. I think you're about to answer. Tell us more about the origin, right? So your name Platinum Howler, for us content creators and your peers, it's kind of a mouthful to say Platinum Howler every time. So we naturally condensed it. We
personally know it because he told us on stream. But there's a lot of people that do, are wondering like the origin of the name. So
yeah, tell us a little bit more about it.
It's not the most epic backstory ever. I'm sorry. I'm not. Unfortunately, I'm not one for super epic backstories. Like even with my favorite Pokemon of all time. I mean, I think I redeemed myself a little bit with the Mystery Dungeon callback, but
yes.
Yeah. So originally, I just came up with Howler because when I started Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, that was the first time that I used Howler as my in-game name. Mm-hmm. And around that time, I was like, it was when I was in grade 11. So I am a Arizona Coyotes fan. They're a hockey team.
Okay.
So the name of their mascot is actually Howler. But that wasn't the reason why I came up with it. I was also at the time kind of paying more attention to the Minnesota Timberwolves basketball team because Andrew Wiggins had just been drafted first overall by them, and Andrew Wiggins is Canadian, so it was sort of a big deal. There's a lot of like media coverage in Canada about him going to the NBA. I kind of passed that Timberwolves phase now, though. Like, I'm definitely more of a Raptors fan. I'm not a huge basketball fan in general, but I definitely do support the Raptors as a basketball team, as Canada's team.
Canadian, yes.
And I will say, the one good thing about the NBA season getting put on hold is the fact that the Raptors are still defending NBA champions. Yeah,
it's just prolonging it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So So that's the reason why I came up with Howler, because I thought it was a good mesh for Timberwolves and Coyotes. Like they were both kind of similar. Like, you know, they're both like they're both sort of dogs, and they wolf, then they howl and whatnot. But I just like Howler alone, I didn't think was enough. Like, just I don't know. I felt like it was really, I was just too short for like a screen name or whatever. So Platinum was just kind of thrown on there just because Pokemon Platinum is my favorite Pokemon game. But the fact that people have started calling me Plat honestly has probably made me resent the word platinum.
Adding platinum.
It certainly hasn't made me resent the game Pokemon Platinum.
Yes.
But the word itself now has a bad ring now. But people shortening it and just calling me Plat. Because when I hear Plat, okay. If this is sort of answering another one of the questions. I know Henry asked why I don't like to be called Plat, so I'm basically answering that question now. So, like, if you shorten Platinum to Plat, and you just see the word Plat, and you had no idea that the rest of that word was like it's going to be Platinum, you're like anybody who didn't know would be like, what kind of name is Plat? Like, why would you call yourself that? And also, like, it's one letter off of splat, right? Like, and you know, splat kind of has, like, it kind of has that sound when you picture something making a splat noise. Whatever you're picturing is probably pretty gross looking. So I don't want the imagery associated with my name when you start to think of when you're referencing myself as Plat, you know?
I completely, that's exactly what I thought about as to, like, when we were talking to Liv, is like, why you didn't like the name Plat, and I was like, because it really doesn't sound like Plat, like, it just sounds like something's falling on the ground.
I've told you this before when we were on stream, and then I kind of cleared that up, and we got the honor of finding your real name, but when you actually were brought to our attention to bring you into the AP Academy, I'm gonna put you on the spot, bro. Called you Plat, and I thought your name was Plat. I didn't know your name was Platinum Howler. Mind you, I had never met you before, and I've never heard of you. And so when he's like, "Oh, we have this guy's name's Plat. He's gonna join." Okay, cool. My first thought in my head was like, he must be a Splatoon fan. Like, he must like Splatoon the game. I was like, maybe he's a Splatoon player.
Which I do. I love Splatoon. I worked up over 200 hours on Splatoon 2 before I traded it in for. It was a good deal. I got $45 worth of trade credit back for Splatoon 2 after I played it for over 200 hours. So yeah, I actually hit a point where I was like, you know what, I got my money's worth. I'll trade it in, get some.
There you go. Because I thought you were just like a Splatoon player that loves, like, you played Super Smash Brothers, and then you love the Splatoon line. And I was like, okay, cool, he's a Splatoon fan, and I didn't think too much of it.
Yeah.
And then later, your name came out as Platinum Howler. I was like, who's this? He goes, and then Mid's like, that's Plat.
Oh my God. So it's all Mid's fault.
It is. So when Jesse listens to this, he's gonna get a little laugh out of that.
That's fine. But my favorite part of her apology is when she was like telling him, she's like, "I'm so sorry." She kept calling you Plat in her apology.
She continued to just rip herself apart.
It was my favorite.
And
that was the best part as well for me, because I could immediately hear that you guys reacted like that made you guys laugh a lot too. So that in turn that made me laugh even more.
Yeah, that was great.
And her second part of her question that she has on here for number 2, she even formatted this nice for us. She says, "What's your favorite quarantine activity?" And that's the resounding times that we're in right now.
You know, honestly, the only thing that the quarantine has affected for me is my baseball. I coach Bantam Boys baseball. The team that I coach is called the Delta Tigers, hence my draft league team name, Delta Tigers. Yeah, so if a lot of people say, when they say my team name, they'll say Delta Glygars, because that's how most people would pronounce that. But for the purpose of for the purpose of this team name, pronounce it Gligers so that it sounds more like Tigers.
Tiger.
There you go.
Because that's the team name that I actually coach in real life. So, yeah. So that was really the only difference that's like pre-COVID versus post-COVID now. So the fact that I didn't really have baseball to go to, I didn't see. We've started up practicing again. We've had six practices so far. Yeah, I think six. Nice. I want to say 6. So we've been going for the last 2 weeks or so. But there was a period of when we had our first practice on the day of, I calculated how many days it had been since we had last had an official like baseball event, and it was 107 days.
Jeez.
That I didn't get to see any of my players, and then that was a really tough time. But we're over it now. We're over that hump, so that's really cool. So I was still working a lot. I was still working the same amount that I work now.
What do you do?
So I work part-time at a warehouse for a company called MCO. They're a plumbing and heating supplies distributor. Okay. So I just work in the warehouse as a material handler. So basically, that's the official job name. It's basically just going around and grabbing stuff from the warehouse that different plumbing companies have ordered and whatnot, packaging it up so when they come to pick it up that it's ready. Or sometimes we ship out stuff to them, because plumbing supplies, like there are some orders that people put in that they weigh like thousands of pounds, so they're not coming to pick that up. We gotta prepare that to ship them out to them and stuff. So I worked there 20 hours, and I got that job because the head coach of the Delta Tigers that I coached with, he works there as one of the managers. So
cool.
So that's how I got that job. So it's really cool because I can go there in the morning, and then if we have baseball after work, then I just ride with him to baseball. So it makes it really easy because I don't know how to drive. I don't have my own car. I don't have my license yet. I'm still learning. Yeah. So
nice. Well, that works out.
Whenever I did have free time, I wasn't really doing that much different than I would usually do. Like if I had a little bit extra free time, I'd probably just spend it watching like Netflix, or I'd be playing other games besides Pokemon that I don't get a chance to play, just because whatever time I spend gaming is usually consumed a lot by Pokemon. So getting a chance to play other games, such as I really like playing Atlas RPGs. So like Persona, for example. Persona 5 is my favorite game, like my favorite video game of all time. But I played through that 3 years ago. Persona 5 Royal came out recently. I didn't actually play through Persona 5 Royal because it's very much the same game as the original. It's kind of like how you would think of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon as a follow-up to Sun and Moon.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't see a reason to play Persona 5 Royal myself, but those are the types of games that I like to play whenever I'm not playing Pokemon, basically.
Nice.
The next question that we have here on Twitter is by Matt O'Shea, a fellow Canadian, at the Matt O'Shea. Matt, I love you to pieces, my man, but for the sake of time, I'm only going to do 2 of his 4 questions that he asked you on Twitter. We'll do the top 2 that he has, because I feel like there's going to be a great story attached to both of them. The first part that he has here, it says, what makes you proud to be Canadian?
Yeah, he's kind of returning the favor there, because that's the same question that I asked him when he was on the podcast a couple of months ago. So definitely how accepting everyone is of all the cultural diversity in the country. Like, I think if you asked any Canadian, they would probably tell you that. But for me, I really feel living in Canada, I really feel like much safer. Like, just in general, I've been to visit some of the cities in the States. Like, I've been to Cleveland, for example. We were there for one night. We saw a baseball game there, and Like if I were to live in like Pittsburgh was another place that we were there. Like if I were to live in Pittsburgh and Cleveland, I would not feel nearly as safe as I would living in Vancouver. And I don't know if that's really a fair thing to say, because I don't like really live in downtown Vancouver or anything like that. But yeah, that's just something that I really value about living in Canada. I just feel like overall it's a safer place, and there's a lot less risk of social turmoil, like
currently experiencing
going on there.
Yeah,
that is 100%.
Yeah,
true.
I definitely. That's the one thing that I hear is like from most Canadians is like of acceptance of each other, which is amazing. I love that.
And then the next part that Matt has here, he asks you, what is one moment in your draft league experience that stands out the most?
This is pretty much going to be the same answer to Sock's question. And we've referenced mid a lot in this, and I'm going to reference mid again here.
We love you, Jesse.
Probably my favorite draft league game that I've had was my week 6 IBLD league game against him. Just because in prepping for that game, I spent so much time thinking about what the best way to go about it was, and I just kept hitting dead end after dead end. I was like, I can't figure out a way to beat this team. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do. So eventually I just committed myself to bringing like 5 offensive Mons and a Sylveon. And the Sylveon never actually ended up hitting the field. It was just like bring one offensive Mon in after another, and it was totally not the type of playstyle that I was used to at the time. Mm-hmm. Definitely a playstyle that I'm more comfortable with now. And I did end up winning that game with a team that I thought was just insane, and I couldn't picture myself winning with that type of team. And it stands out just because it was such a different thing for me to do. It was such a big risk that I felt that I was taking in preparing for that game, and I felt like it was sort of like a turning point for me in my draft league career, where I became more comfortable taking some of those risks that maybe I wouldn't have taken in the past,
There you go. I like that. Look at that. So this is kind of hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. So that's kind of referencing to the same question that Itsock asked, which was, what was your fondest memory in league format? So shout out to both of you guys. And because we hit 2 birds with 1 stone, we'll hit the third question that Matt had. And his third question that he had on there was, which is actually a pretty good one. I like this one. Who is one person you'd like to play more than anyone else in the draft league format?
It's probably not going to be the answer you expect. That would be JB Westside.
Whoa.
Yeah, so the only time that JB and I have played was week 9, the last week of the regular season for BBR season 1. And we had already both clinched playoffs at that point. So I just grabbed Mons out of my box and was like, hey, you want to get this game over with now? It doesn't mean anything. We're both in playoffs anyway, right? So that was the only time that we've played. We've now been in APA Academy this season. We've been in IBL and BBR Season 2, and none of those leagues did I get to play JB. 0 out of 3. 0 for 3. It's unbelievable. I want an actual competitive game against him, because he's been in so many leagues and he's been so prevalent in the community that I've been prevalent in, and we just never get matched up. And I think he's a super funny guy. I love watching his content a lot. Like his live comms are just hilarious. So yeah, I really want to get a chance to play him. I'm hoping that maybe we can get matched up in the playoffs, maybe for BBR, or if he sticks around in IBL for season 8, hopefully we get matched up for that season. But yeah, that would be my answer. JB Westside.
There you go. That's kind of like in the same context that I have with our common denominator here on today's episode with Mid. We're actually going to play each other for the first time after being in, I could probably say, like 7 leagues together. We've never played ever, so like I feel that same energy.
What are the odds of that? That's crazy.
Right? We're working together with an admin team on Academy. I've played with him in the NCP Showdown season. I played with him in a couple other showdowns. We have an APA Classic Showdown League, and then the second APA Classic Showdown League. We didn't play each other then. We didn't play each other in Academy. We didn't play each other in NCP, Wi-Fi. We're finally getting our chance in BBR. So I feel that same energy that now it's got all that built up that you guys have been waiting to show down. So and then JB is a great competitor, so I can't wait for that one. That's gonna be a good time.
And also, speaking of BBR first, week one I'm playing Shayquaza, never battled Shayquaza, and I've also never battled Diet Tight. So those are some like, you know, familiar names that you would think I've battled before, but I actually haven't ever played them. So like names that have been around for a while that have been in similar leagues that I've been in, but I just, for whatever reason, never got to play them. So those are the games that I'm most looking forward to.
There you go. So now's the opportunity. You got some high octane competition coming pretty soon, guys. So make sure you guys just strap up for that one. It's going to be a good time. The next question that I have here on Twitter is from Trash and Treasure at @trash_treasure. Phenomenal name. He asks you, what do you feel is the next step / would be a good next step to keeping Pokemon from growing stale, or what do you feel that you are doing that your opponents are not, which is leading to your success?
Those are basically two completely different questions, though.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know why he did.
I'm glad you said that.
Mr. Podcast host, you can choose one of these two questions. I think you choose whichever one. Yeah, but Trash is cool. He's also Canadian. He is part of the Ion Game Corner family. Huh. So yeah, that's where that question came from. As far as making sure Pokemon doesn't get stale, even though it continues to introduce mechanics like Z-moves and Gigantamax, which maybe aren't the most competitively balanced, I still think that is a necessary part of keeping Pokemon fresh. Continuing to introduce new mechanics like that, like just like and creating, and then there's also like regional variants now these days. Like we have regional legendaries coming up in the second DLC wave, which is super awesome. So just continuing to introduce new stuff and even new items this generation, I thought was really cool. That was not something that I was expecting coming into Generation 8 at all. So I think just trying to bring in new stuff, even though I do this all the time. Like when I try to sum up my answer, I just repeat the exact words that I said before. So the second question is kind of hard for me to answer because I don't really like talking about why I think I might be a better player than somebody else. Just because there is so much RNG and luck-based mechanics that are a part of Pokemon and that you can't really get around. So like anybody can beat anybody in a given Pokemon battle, like no matter like depending on what kind of hacks comes out, right? But I think I've been trending more towards an offensive playstyle, and I feel like that kind of playstyle takes away a lot of the chance for you to be on the bad end of hacks, to be on the bad end of things that you cannot control. So if you are able to maintain offensive momentum throughout the game and kind of dictate the play, then you don't, and you put yourself in position to where it doesn't matter if you get hacks, that you can still come out and win. Then I think that's usually a good mindset to have going into games. That's how I answer that question.
There you go. I like that. Yeah, but that factor is something that it's a cool element to have in Pokemon, that it's not always going to be dependent on skill. It's not always going to be dependent on over prepping or basically out prepping your opponent. There's still that element of luck that even though you, in some ways, it'll bail you out, but in other ways it can kind of tip the corner and make it more fun to watch. It's a cool little aspect that Pokemon has compared to other games that makes it a lot more fun. So I like that part of it. It sometimes can be frustrating, but at the same time it's very entertaining for someone to watch on a consumer level. So that's pretty dope. And the next question that we have here is at ace_has_greed. He asks you, how was your time in draft leagues, mainly the Nimbasa League, treating you? Kind of like what we talked about before, but give us a little bit more intel about your experience so far in the Nimbasa League.
The Nimbasa City League is a huge and awesome community that's really, really active in the Discord server. It's so active, there's no possible way I can keep up with all of the chatter that goes on in there. I'll obviously, while this season is running, I'll try to be a little bit more active. But there's the commissioner of the NCL. His name, he goes by Ian. He actually lives in Delta. It lives in the area, in the town of the team that I coach. So we met up once at one of my games last year when we played in North Delta. And I got so caught up in the competitiveness of the baseball game that I forgot to get a picture with him after the game, get a selfie with him, and I'm still kicking myself for that and waiting for the next opportunity for him to come out to a game and get a picture. But everybody in the NCL will agree with this. Ian is the best league commissioner that exists on Discord. He is so thorough with everything he does that knowing that he was commissioning the league, that made it such an easy decision for me to dive into Showdown and give that sort of metagame a chance. So yeah, I'm really glad that I decided to do that, because I had a lot more fun playing in the last season of NCL than I thought I would. I kind of just went into it thinking, I'll give this a shot. I ended up winning the championship in that league. So yeah, it was cool. Hello? Still there?
There you go. My bad. We're back. There's a mic issue. But
I haven't hit Summer in a long time. She didn't have to leave.
So guys, under context, she's actually handling business. She was one of our kids woke up, so she's handling that. So she's being an MVP. She's making sure that Roman is taken care of. He fell out of bed, and so he's just not having a good time right now. But the bed's not very high. It's probably like a foot off the ground. But whenever all conditions are not met, he just has a complete meltdown. So
parenting stories with Leo. Walk it off. You're fine, kid. Get back to recording the podcast. Damn it.
Exactly. I don't know how high your kids' beds are, but goddamn. So she's handling Roman. She'll be back in a little bit. But the next question that I have here is from This is from our good buddy, Man on the Moon, aka at Mario B33. This is a phenomenal human being. I love Mario B. He asks you, how confident are you that you can take the IBL this season, because you are in the running, my man, for the championship? How are you feeling about it?
I mean, I got a 1 in 4 chance, right? So I got to be pretty happy with the position I've put myself in. I try never to look at a certain matchup and think to myself, oh, this matchup sucks. There's no way that I can win this matchup. I think there's always a way to get around a matchup somehow. Sometimes you might just have to think more out of the box than others. Yeah. So I'm confident that if I put in enough time into whatever game that I'm playing, that I'll eventually figure out a game plan that will work for me. And then at that point, we just head into the game, and I feel pretty confident about my playing ability. So as long as I've game planned adequately beforehand, once we get in the game, I always believe that I have a chance to beat anyone.
Yeah, and good luck to you, man. It's getting pretty close. Top 4, top cut. We're getting to the nitty gritty. I know that you kind of had some unfortunate circumstances to get you to this point with the opponent, your week 1 round opponent with the playoffs having to forfeit. But nonetheless, that doesn't mean that you don't deserve it more than anybody else, because to contrary belief, I'll say here on the podcast today, I'd be very confident to say that you would have won that game. So I don't feel as though there's any difference. So moving forward, I think that you do have a real good chance to get your second championship. You'd be repeat, right? You won the first one. Probably snagged the second one.
Yeah, it was. I actually wouldn't be the first person in IBL history to win back-to-back championships. There is a guy named Darude from way back in the day who kind of had his reign of the IBL. So it wouldn't be an IBL first. But yeah, well, maybe if we can find a way to pull out the Season 7 championship, then we can make it a first by taking Season 8 championship too. Maybe.
Well, there you go.
I'll give it a try.
We'll have the development of the Delta Glagars dynasty. Kind of similar to the Patriots, so that'll be a good time. And that is all I have on Twitter, but I do have a DM question. This is from @Panda, which is assuming is probably someone that is in your Discord community. Panda came into my DMs and he wanted to ask you a question because he says he does not have a Twitter, so very excited to throw this one on to you guys. Panda, he asks you, he says, what's your favorite and most memorable, no, not your favorite, we'll say it this way, what's your most memorable loss?
Wow, I'm impressed. That's a good question. Holy crap.
Oh boy, we got you.
Jeez. Honestly, this might be spoiling for anyone who hasn't seen my most recent video, but I did put out a video for the quarterfinals, even though I got a forfeit through, but I did ask somebody else to take the place for me, and we had a battle. He used my planned opponent's team against me, and he actually did beat me 1-0 in a very, very close and exciting game. So that probably has to rank up there, like, because that was so recent. That's got to be the first thing that comes to mind. But there definitely, I'm sure if I had more time to think about it, that I could give you a much better answer. So yeah, I'll think about it later, and I'll get back to him in DMs. But that's going to be my answer. The most recent IBL quarterfinal game, which
is intense, right? Because that's something that could be like a big what if. It's something that the roster has the opportunity to end your run. So what could have been? So that makes you really think about what your game plan could have been moving forward if there really was a scenario that happened. Because if this was Nebris that was playing you, then this could have been the end of the storybook run to get you for your repeat. So it kind of puts things in perspective for you to say that, hey, this could happen at any time. Maybe the preparation wasn't so solidified in my favor, so kind of puts things in perspective for you.
All right, really quick, I just thought of a good example. Is actually my PCL D-League game against Liv. Yeah, so we were in similar spot in the standings at that time, and that was another team that was like super weak to ground. And I brought two Pokemon with Air Balloon. I brought two with Air Balloon. I had Air Balloon Heatran and Air Balloon Drapion. And eventually I got to a point, like my win con going into that game was Electric Seed, Hitmonlee, and late in the game we got to a point where I thought I had won. I thought I had set Hitmonlee up in a position to clean. Oh, and then he reveals that he has a Scarfed Pheromosa.
Oh.
And I didn't see that coming at all, and I was like so devastated because I thought I had the game won, and then that thing comes in and revenge kills my Hitmonlee, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? I was in such shock. And then even after that, I still had a chance to win if I had just made the right prediction, and like of him switching out his Pheromosa into Greninja, because I brought in my Heatran that still had air balloon on it. So his Pheromosa head couldn't go for a drill run, but I kind of over predicted, thinking that like he would expect me to call a switch, since I think he was like locked into drill run with an air balloon Heatran in front of him. So like if I had predicted that play of his and swapped out into my Tapu Koko as he brought in Greninja, then I still would have been in a winning position. So that was a fond loss, I think. And it didn't break my season either, because I still managed to make it into playoffs at the end of the day. I think after that game, I won my last 3 regular season games to clinch the number 1 seed and a bye to the semifinals. The number 1 seed in my division, because there was like 2 divisions of 6 teams in that league. So hopefully I redeemed myself with that answer, I think.
There you go. It's the out of the box stuff that can get us sometimes, and it's the ones that make you think about the wider range of things, that anything could happen. So that's the cool part about the game that we play. That's cool. So who would have thought that all this time later that'd be something that would stick with you? So shout out to everybody that sent questions over on Twitter. We really do appreciate you guys participating and getting us a little bit more intel on the guests that we have on the Grandmasters table. And now's your time, my man. The floor is yours. Do you have any projects coming pretty soon? I know you talked about the Showdown Draft League coming pretty soon, but is there any other projects that you'd like to plug at this moment?
Sure. So the next season of the NCL is going to be coming. Showdown post commentaries. The draft starts this weekend, so content won't be coming out for probably another 2 or 3 weeks, I want to say, probably, but it's going to be there. I'm playing in the BBR with you and a whole bunch of other awesome people. We are playing week 1 matches this week. Draft analysis will go up after the draft stream this weekend. Admittedly, still have a lot of work to do on that, so that's what I'm going to be doing in the next couple days. I'm also planning on returning to IBL. I thought it was going to be starting up a lot sooner than it looks like it might be now, so I might have a little bit of a gap between BBR and IBL, which is honestly good, because I don't like having all of the leagues going on at once, I like them to be as staggered as possible. So that's going to be coming your way. I've also started to make an effort to stream more regularly. I've committed to a Tuesday night, Thursday afternoon streaming schedule on my Twitch channel. It's Platinum Howler 14. There's a 14 at the end of that one. I wanted to try to change it to match my Discord and YouTube, but Twitch doesn't let you do that for whatever reason. So it's Platinum Howler 14 on Twitch. I'm doing Pokemon battles, and if nobody's in the stream, then usually I just do VGC laddering on the double ladder.
Look at that.
I've actually been to a VGC regional event once.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I went to one just for fun. Obviously, I didn't plan on winning the whole thing. I was happy that I ended with a positive record, but I didn't get to play in the second day of the tournament. But that's cool. So Tuesday streams are usually whatever other game that's not Pokemon that I'm playing at the time. I'm trying to finish my playthrough of the story for Luigi's Mansion 3. I'm very close to finishing that up, so the next game that I have planned, once that is all done, is Persona 4 Golden, which I have the opportunity to stream now because it came out on Steam. Previously, I never owned the consoles that game was on, but now that it's on Steam, I made a Steam account. I didn't even have a Steam account before it came out on Steam, but I made one specifically so I could play this game, so I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, that's about it.
That's cool. So guys, if you guys aren't already, I'll leave a link down in the description below for you to subscribe to his YouTube channel, and as well to follow him on Twitch. There's going to be that distinction of the 14 at the end of his name, so if you don't find them, make sure you add that on there as well. But again, the link will be down in the description below for you to join in on his fun, because battling Platinum Howler is an experience. Take it from me. It's always a good time. So I'll leave all those links down in the description. Make sure you follow him because his content is amazing. He does a great job at what he does. All of his commentaries, all of his post-coms, even the games are just something thrilling to watch. So something to really keep an eye out for. I really do recommend that you do so. Thanks again, man, for joining us here on the Grandmaster's Table. I'm sorry that Summer had to step away to do some motherly duties, but from the both of us in the bottom of our hearts, we really do appreciate you coming on. It's been a long time coming.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were just doing your outro, and I was like, my job was done. But yeah, no, I totally blanked there for a moment. I'm sorry, but yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was a good time. You for sure delivered. It was an awesome episode, guys. Again, I'll say it over and over again. Please go over to his channels and support him as content creators. It really does help us out a lot, even to just subscribe if you're watching all of our content and not subscribed. I don't know what you're doing, but make sure you show that support. It really does help us out a lot. Again, big thank you to Platinum Howler for joining us here on the Grandmaster's Table. Summer is out doing her motherly duties and taking care of Roman at the moment, but for the both of us, thank you guys so much for joining us. With all that being said, we're going to get the heck up out of here. Have a great rest of your night, and above all else, be nice. Peace.